This is an information center, information session about the Translation pilot program and introduction to what these pilot projects require to be included, which is translational science emphasis. I'm Rob Singleton. I'm a neurology professor, and I run the clinical research unit. Let's see if we can advance the slide here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what translational science is. I'm going to talk about the program structure. Uh, I'm going to talk about the motivation for these TIP pilots and the application requirements and processes. I want to start by just drawing a distinction between translational science and translational research. We all know translational research is this spectrum of advancing a concept from preclinical research into work with humans in order to develop a biomedical technology. And that can be anywhere along this spectrum. Um, the concept of translational research is basically moving the ball forward in that translational research spectrum. And it can involve really any aspect uh, across that spectrum. Translational science identifies barriers that delay progress or limit the quality or the impact or the equity of translational research projects across a range of diseases and conditions. And then it imagines innovative solutions to address or overcome those barriers. And one simple concept about this is that these translational science innovations can increase the capacity or the efficiency of steps in translational research. Uh, I think one key concept of translational science is that the solution or tool, the efficiency that translational science develops should be generalizable. So it's not something that helps only one investigator or serves only one research protocol or one disease, but instead can be generalized across a number of research areas and diseases. And just as an example, uh, here's a translational research barrier. Um, Drugs that work in animals often fail in their transition to clinical trial work. Uh, and one example of a translational science solution is this human organelle cell chip, which has three-dimensional multicellular biomechanical properties in order to model different organ systems, the eye and the lung, in order to test drugs in those human cells before making a transition to human research. This can allow pre-screening of drugs at scale, and it also can be used to create diseases in a dish, have organ-specific abnormalities that can be addressed in this preclinical setting. Um, Another way to think about translational science is that it can shift the paradigm with a novel conceptual approach that people may not have considered when addressing research project problems. So here's an example. Um, uh, we all know that in the setting of cancer, most patients die not from their primary cancer, but instead from metastases from those primary cancers. And so, a translational science approach is to identify cellular features that are common to cancer cells that make them ripe for metastases and then use that to allow drug screening to limit disease progression or metastasis across cancer types. So this is not imagining a specific cure or preventative step uh, for lung cancer, but instead thinking about how you keep lung cancer from spreading to other organ systems. So, yet another way to think about translational science is that it reduces the friction, reduces the barriers through more efficient or more pragmatic means. And this allows translational science to encompass some very simple pragmatic concepts. Here's one. Um, we know that rural patients participate in clinical trials at a rate a third of their urban counterparts. And that's mostly because of the inconvenience of traveling to in-person visits. And one translational science approach to that barrier to the performance of clinical research is to establish a rural research phlebotomy collective that spread across the Intermountain West, a series of primary care sites capable of drawing blood for research purposes. It's pretty obvious how this reduces the effort for participants, but also for research uh, teams who might otherwise have to travel to these remote participants. And it's also obvious how this is generalizable to multiple studies. So, translational science, this is just an analogy. Um, it's really going from the process of research itself, like building a car, to imagining efficiencies that make that building a car quicker and more efficient, but also safer and of higher quality. So once more, key principles. Translational science addresses a barrier to the advancement of clinical research or translational research. It works towards a product that overcomes or ameliorates that barrier. It needs to be generalizable across multiple diseases and conditions. And that generalizability implies that inherent in translational science is a means to disseminate that solution to research stakeholders who might find benefit from it. With this in mind, then, uh, the Clinical and Translational Science Award Program is this big national program that provides infrastructure awards to 60 sites across the country. The University of Utah has one of these, and it's run by the NIH Institute in Cats. Uh, in Cats imagined that they would like each site to develop translational science projects of their own. And one mechanism for doing so is these trial innovation pilots. Uh, and here are some of the features. Um, it's a $30,000 12-month project. Um, it needs to incorporate translational science objectives. Funding is available to any University of Utah faculty member, but also to researchers in research uh, um, partner programs like at uh, Intermountain Health or at the Veterans Administration Hospital. Um, we encourage collaboration with research staff and administrators, even though at the University of Utah, they don't hold a faculty position, staff cannot directly be the PI for these projects. They often have very pragmatic ideas that can move translational research forward. Um, Projects that combine data science and bioinformatics are encouraged. Um, Cross-departmental collaborations are welcome. And importantly, um, this money is restricted in a way that means that there could be no foreign component to these projects. And NIH has stated that these projects cannot meet the NIH definition of clinical trials, at least at the moment. On the right, I've listed the four aspects that are required, each of them required in order to be a clinical trial. And we are right in the process of working through what this actually means for small projects like these pilots. I think if you think that your project might constitute a clinical trial, you should speak with me or with Brianne in order to think about whether it's true, whether there's a way to find a way forward that would be outside of this definition. The Translational Innovation Pilot program is a one-year program, as I mentioned, and it has a life cycle. And this is kind of the beginning of that life cycle for 2027. Uh, I think between now, so it's a two-stage application. A letter of intent is due on August 3rd, and then a full application is due on the 12th for studies that or applications that are thought to be appropriate to move on to that full application. Um, if your application, your letter of intent is approved to move forward, we'll assign an advisor, we'll provide translational science coaching, and we'll also offer services from the Clinical and Translational Science Institute. After applications are submitted in October, there is an NIH style review that leads to a notice of intent to fund for up to five of these projects each year. The actual start date for funding is April of 2027. So there's a long, just in time, pre uh, like we'll tell you you're getting the money, but you don't have to start using the money until April. And that allows time for completion of an IRB for this project and approval by central INCATS uh, for this project. Uh, there's a 6 month and a 12-month review, and then we will keep track of the progress of this pilot project uh, just like we would any pilot to see what you've accomplished with this. Uh, so when I instruct reviewers for these tip reviews for reviewing these applications, I ask them to consider the rigor and the scientific quality. Um, I expect an explicit statement of translational science objectives. Um, we need you to show us how the proposed project incorporates or meets those translational science objectives. Um, like any pilot, we are strongly interested in feasibility. Will you be able to accomplish the aims of your project in a 12-month time period? And then, like any pilot, the goal here is to provide preliminary uh, data that can be used in order to seek extramural funding. And so we want projects to have a clear plan towards that funding. So uh, take-home points. To be funded, these proposals have to embody translational science objectives. Um, uh, the office hours between now and August are a good time to talk in a very casual way about your project so that we can help you to see how a project might incorporate translational science. Um, uh, like all extramural funds, uh, all of the funds for these pilots have to be spent within the 12 months after the notice of award in April of 2027. these QR codes just take you to the TIP website and an office hours sign up. Uh, I'm not gonna take questions now, but instead I'm going to introduce Dr. Zhang, who's here to talk just a little bit more explicitly about this partnership between bioinformatics and data science, which is one of the encouraged areas of these pilots. So please take it away. I can
Okay.
stop sharing so you can start sharing.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Can you see my slide?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Okay. First of all, thank you for joining this information section. And today I will give a brief introduction to the CTISI BIDS program, and also explain the why, how BIDS is being developed at the University of Utah, and highlight what we are looking for in BID focused seed grant in the TIP program. And first of all, I want to let you know that the BIDS stands for the biostatistics, biomedical informatics, and data science. The central idea is that the many translational research projects now require more than one of this area. Oftentimes, the investigator need help with the study design, data access, data management, statistical method, AI approach, machine learning approach, reproducible workflow, and also sometimes a dissemination plan. So in BIDS, um, um, is intended to create a more coordinated pathway for investigator rather than treating all these requests as a separate services. Okay, first of all, I want to talk about why beta, what is the CTSI BIDS? At the national level, CTSI BIDS is a coordinated methodological engine for translational science. It brings together expertise in biostatistics, biomedical informatics, and the data science to support the investigator from the earliest stage of the project through analysis, interpretation, and dissemination. The important point is that the BIT is not simply three independent cores sitting next to each other. The goal is integration, which means coordinated expertise, shared standards, reusable workflow, and stronger communication across the different teams. For investigators, this should translate into more rigorous and reproducible research, fewer late-stage analytic surprise, and better alignment between the scientific question, the data, and the method being used. Um, the fiscal year 2027 business narrative framed this integrated methodology core as a fundamental to investigator success, cross-hub collaboration, and the competitive CTSI renewal. Okay, now I want to show why BIDS at the University of Utah now and where we are. So we have the BIDS community at the University of Utah. Um, I think from the end of last year or early this year. And currently we have two member. Julio is the member from the BMI, and I serve as the BID member from the biostatistics. Um, the BID is very important because the research environment is changing very quickly, and many projects are no longer based on one clean data set or one straightforward analysis plan. Investigators are often working with multi-module data, real-world clinical data, imaging, omics, EHR derived variables, digital health data, and also increasingly, AI enabled analytics. So those projects often require expertise in data extraction, data quality assessment, harmonization, statistic design, computational workflow, and the bias and the fairness considerations and the interpretation. The current challenge in at the University of Utah is that siloed support doesn't always keep up with this complexity. So the BIDS response is at the University of Utah is to build shared standards across the core workflow, reproducible code, and better data navigation across the CTSI programs. So our goal is to make advanced method more visible, accessible, and sustainable while reducing the fragmentation across the bioinformatics, biostatistics, and the data science support. This slide showed the investigator pathway where these can add value for your study. The first step is helping formulate the research question. This is where we clarified whether the question is feasible, what data are needed, and what kind of methodological approach is appropriate. The second step is accessing and assembling the data. This might involve identifying data sources, evaluating data quality, understanding missingness, defining variables, or determining whether real-world data can answer the question of interest. And the third step is designing the analysis. This is where biostatistical and data science expertise are especially important, including the study design, causal inference, predictive modeling, machine learning, or other more advanced quantitative methods. And the fourth step is executing the work reproducibly. That means that the documented workflow, a version controlled code, reusable analytical pipelines, and the transparent assumptions. Finally, the fifth step is interpretation and dissemination. The BIDS can help ensure that the findings are scientifically valid, appropriately communicated, and packaged in ways that can be reused by other investigators. So the main message from this slide is that the BIDS is most valuable when investigator engage the BIDS earlier, not after the project has already run into problems. So this is my final slide. I want to talk about the BIDS focused seed ground in the T program. A competitive BIDS focused application. By the way, so this is slide essentially reflect my current thinking since we just started this effort this year. So definitely there may be something I missed. You know, but this is, I think, is a good starting point. So essentially what I mean to say is that a competitive BIDS focused application should start with a clear translational science barrier, like what Rob just mentioned in his talk. And the application should explain what is slowing down or weaken translational research, and then it should show how BIDS integration can help solve that problem. In other words, how do biostatistics, biomedical informatics, data science work together in this project? The project also need to be feasible within 1 year because it's seed ground, and the reviewer, similar to other seed ground program, and the reviewer will look for clear aims, milestone, metrics, and realistic alternatives if something doesn't go as planned. Um, Another feature is the uh, generalizability. The project should produce something that other investigator can use. For example, either could be workflow, could be code repository, could be analytic pipeline or training module or methodological framework. Um, and the dissemination is also very important. Uh, the application should explain how the solution will be shared with others, not just used internally for one project. Um, Finally, the application should including a realistic pathway toward future extramural funding, as Rob mentioned. Um, and since the TEEP mechanism is meant to generate the preliminary data, proof of concept, or reusable infrastructures that can stress the future larger ground application. Um, there's some viewpoint I want people to keep in mind. Um, Clinical trial are not eligible for the BIDS focused seed grant. And um, uh, and a disease-specific project alone probably not sufficient unless it's clearly advanced a generalizable translational science solution. And um, so I think Rob already covered the key days for this program, so I will not repeat that. Yeah, so that's the information I want to share specifically for BIDS. Julio, if you have any, if you have missed anything, please free to add.
Do stop sharing and then we can see
Yeah.
the question.
No, I think that you covered everything. It's just to get we have a draft on the integration of all these activities in BITS, and I'm not at the liberty to share that, but I suppose that we will be submitting that very soon. So if people want to understand where the BITS community is going, contact me personally, and I can share that. I think that will give you the sense of what ACTS and NCATs are going with this. But essentially, I think that you and I want to move somehow. We need to start moving out of the more traditional service model and moving into a much more collaborative way in which informatics, data science, and biostatistics are at the table in day zero of when the project is formulated.
Yeah.
I think we should see if anyone attending has questions. Julio, you should turn off your TV behind your head. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and ask questions, Amanda. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. It gives me a much better sense of what this funding opportunity is about,
Yep.
and also the vision with BID. So that's great. I am just curious for you and Julio, where you see sort of implementation science and that pipeline potentially fitting in with BIDS. Will
Mm.
it be a complementary, or even within CTSI? Yeah, that makes sense.
I think from my perspective, implementation science just, one piece of the spectrum. So the key is finding something, a project within that late spectrum portion of research that can be um, be understood as an efficiency or a solution to an aspect of this. And we have been, and INCATS has been pretty broad in defining what translational science means in that setting. So I would, um, well, I'd encourage you to uh, think about it. I think we are very happy to talk through conceptually things just to see that what you're thinking about sort of meets the way that we imagine translational science. One thing I'll say is that the BIDS application is just a part of the tip application. It's one, can be one form of a tip application. And I bring it up only because I think I don't want people to get the idea that there are two separate competitions. There is just one. And this year, we are emphasizing this pathway because we want to encourage this integration that Yue was talking about. So um, uh, we will judge all of the tip applications, including those ones, on the same standards, basically. And I think you really made that really clear. Like you and I didn't share slides, but we have exactly the same aspects when talking about what makes an appropriate translation
Yeah, I
project.
mean, and I will encourage people not to include the bits integration to force one. For instance, Rob example of getting blood in distant areas and stuff like that. It has nothing to do with biostat and data science and the like. So I will guess that we just forcing the bits integration in something that in which the translational barrier is not associated with bits. I don't see that will be very well received. I mean, what we are looking is things that show that integration along the lines of bits will remove an existing translational barrier.
I'm looking at, Amanda, did we answer some of your questions?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no, that was helpful.
good.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
So the
Um,
bottom line is just keep the science in mind. The bit, if helpful, then do it. If not helpful,
Yeah.
then don't do it. So
Yeah, well, I was also thinking that maybe because if you put it in a letter of intent and you're reviewing it and you see there's potentially or there's an opportunity to strengthen the idea by connecting, right? You're going to appoint an advisor, but maybe there's an obvious BIDS link that hasn't been considered. So, but maybe there's also an implementation component that hasn't been considered as well. I think I was sort of trying to think about that piece too.
And Amanda, I think that I mentioned that this is a two-step application, a letter of intent followed by an application. And one of our goals was really to help applicants to strengthen their project. So the letter of intent phase lets us just see what people are thinking so that we can kind of steer them a little bit. And then the application phase includes providing expertise. And we actually ask in the letter of intent phase what kinds of expertise the applicant thinks might be useful to them to develop a stronger application. So um, we're we're thinking, we want you to tell us how we can help to strengthen your application. Um,
Rob, answering Maggie questions, I think
yes,
that the previous discussion answered two completely, and I will let Rob to answer the first one.
yep. Right, I agree. I was looking at that as well. Maggie, thanks for asking your question. Obviously, not obviously, but I think as I was saying, this BIDS emphasis is not the only thing that you can apply about. We're open to the full range of translational science projects that have no connection to BIDS. And then, yes, someone can be involved in multiple applications. No one person can be the PI for multiple applications. I don't know if Brianne has anything else to add about that piece. Or Ashley. Okay.
Correct to me, Rob.
Okay. I think um, uh, are there other questions that we can answer? I want to emphasize that um, we have uh, we have two scheduled, and we may reschedule a third office hour episodes, which are just a chance to talk specifically about your application for 30 minutes. So and you can come as you are, as I like to say. You don't have to bring anything to that discussion. If you want to share materials with us before it, sometimes that can help, but that's totally up to you. And it's informal and it doesn't have any effect on the way that the letter of intent is reviewed. Okay. Uh, Thanks so much for joining. We really appreciate this. Um, Ashley Capron is an administrator, and I don't know if there's she's like our lead PhD director for the CTSI. And I don't know if Ashley, thanks for joining. Do you have anything else you want to say at this stage?
Not at this time. Yue and Rob, thank you so much for doing this.
Okay, beautiful. All right. Thanks so much. Look forward to seeing you again. Thanks very much.